What is up, everyone? Aeneas here. Welcome back. It's Monday again, so time for another Monday metagame update. And today we're gonna talk about standard. We're gonna talk about best of one and best of three. We're gonna look at some spicy new decks off Twitter, and also talk about, I guess, the state of the meta a little bit. Have a little chat on things where I'm seeing on the ladder, how I'm feeling about the new cards, and how they're fitting in with the existing cards. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so yeah, standard meta. Currently it's still being pretty dominated by aggro, it seems. The soldiers deck that they built just a little bit too well put together, has a little bit too many value pieces. So very hard to crack this deck. So it's still sitting at top with 60% win rate. I think that actually went down a little bit from before. I believe it was close to 65 in the last standard, so it has gone down a little bit, but it's still very dominant. I'm sure a part of that is still because people can't find the right builds of other decks that they're trying out. So definitely not discouraged yet, and we'll talk about a little bit later, like how it feels and things like that. But yeah, Soldier's still very good in best of one. We're looking at just the last week, and we're looking at Diamond to Mythic because most people are probably in that range right about now. Yeah, and then best of one also has mono white doing well, so those are considered tier one by Untapped at GG. Then mono red is also very good, top of tier two. And yeah, this deck honestly for me is the scariest one right now on the ladder in best of one, because the soldiers ones you can win, you can lose, but you often feel like you have a fighting chance. Mono red, a lot of times, if you don't have an immediately good turn one or turn two play, then you can just lose. And even sometimes you think you stabilize and they just off the top double lightning bolts or something like that, and you lose. So very scary deck. I really hope that Wizards will print a few more cards that are kind of like good for facing aggro and less like supporting the burn meta type, because right now it feels very strong. All right. And best of one, I should stipulate best of one. A little bit different in best of three. All right, Selesnya Toxic. So this is another deck. I think Kroki's kind of specialized this version of the deck, being a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more down to earth. Just having a lot of good creatures in there, like this one, Slaughter Stinger and stuff like that. I haven't found this deck to be very hard to beat, but yeah, if you're trying to use targeted removal, it's very difficult to beat that. I would say you either need to outscale them or have sweepers if you want to beat this. Maybe even some counter spells is nice. But its stats say it's doing well, so it's definitely a choice you can pick if you want to play that on the ladder. And besides that, Gruul aggro looks like it's coming up pretty well, 55%. I believe it was 54% last time, so it's moving up. People are finding better versions of the deck, and definitely is a contender for one of the top decks. I also saw that Mono Blue was doing quite well. A lot of people were playing this and having success, so maybe that's kind of the best mid-range / control option in best of one right now. Mono white control not doing super well, but also still a very solid deck. And I think this is CGB's list. Looks like it's doing okay as well, but yeah, haven't seen that one on ladder as of yet. All right, that's kind of it for best of one. If we look at popularity, still soldiers and mono red are still the most popular. Zoe's control is up there. That's the deck I'm playing the most recently, honestly, is Zoe's control. But as you can see, the win rate is not great so much. I definitely have a higher than 49% win rate with my Zoe's control, but yeah, it's still not as good as probably the soldiers' win rates are. Okay, best of three, we see kind of a similar story, to be honest. But we also have a few more mid-range decks doing well. Esper Legends, Rakdos, Grixis, Jund, they're all doing quite well. And they'll have, yeah, higher than 55% win rate. which is very good. So I think if you're sick of aggro, yeah, probably have to go into the best of 3 format to kind of deal with it. Because though they're still good in best of 3, there is a lot of contenders there as well. It's kind of shocking to see that Mono Red and Soldiers though jumped up this high. I remember last season they were not this good, so kind of crazy. I think we'll see kind of the same thing here for the tier list, but Soldiers and Esper are the top 2. Grixis also very good. Mono Black very good. Mono White mid range, surprisingly, is doing much better in best of 3. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Selesnya Toxic, okay. John Doe, okay. But that's about it. Yeah. All right. Interesting. So best of 3 looks pretty similar as well, but there's a few decks that are creeping up. Mono White and maybe the Toxic deck. But lots of aggro. Still lots of aggro. I think if the format gets aggro enough, then there's a few cards that hate on like the small creatures. Especially in white, there's like the temporary lockdown. There's also in red the Brotherhood's End. I think if those 2 cards ever get to good enough where they're hitting like most of the creatures in standard, then that would be a good shot for control to swing back in and like kind of take over. But right now, not looking so hot. All right. There was only one real tournament in standard over the weekend, and it was I believe a Japanese tournament, no, Korean tournament. And the top winner is Mono Blue Tempo, surprisingly. So that's pretty cool. And then Rakdos midrange, Jund, and Jund were the top 4, it looks like. Mono White getting the 5th place. And 5-color Reanimator in 6 is pretty cool. But yeah, the blue one is definitely strong enough to get first place, so that's pretty cool. Wonder what tech they had. Anything interesting? Scatter Ray, that's one I don't see often. So they have a lot of controls and counter spells in here, actually. Okay, well, yeah, it's not a huge tournament, but it's cool to see some of these fringe decks doing well. And then I'm not going to spoil anything because we don't really talk about Pioneer here, but there was a Pro Tour over the weekend at the Magic Fest Philadelphia, I want to say. And apparently it got a lot of coverage, so you can watch that on YouTube some places, and had a lot of big names in it, so pretty cool. But yeah, we won't really go into that here. All right, and then let's talk about some spicy brews before we go on to just talking about the meta a little bit. So first off, Schlop, I think we featured them a few times before, but they made this Grixis list. Looks pretty sweet. Actually, kind of my style of deck, like kind of a control-y. Yeah, I would say this is mostly control. I mean, there's only 2 creatures, Blood Tithe Harvester and Shieldred, and basically Blood Tithe Harvester is just a removal on a stick. So, oh, I guess Capricious Hellraiser too. But pretty sweet deck, I would say, and apparently they've been doing well with it. So yeah, maybe something I try out on the ladder. Pretty cool. And then we got Brandon Burgess. He received got to Mythic just recently, pretty quickly, with this Reanimator deck. This was really popular maybe last week with Atraxa. One of the cards I predicted would be good, so it is in fact good with Invoke Justice. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. I also want to play a little bit of the Reanimator style deck, so I'll probably do a video on that soon. But this is his build that did well. Portal to Phyrexia, 4 of, seems a little bit crazy to me, to be honest, but yeah, maybe it's the way to go. I mean, if you're running Repair and Recharge, you probably want more hits, so I could see that. But yeah, cool deck. Glad it's doing well. Faithful Mending to help with life gain. That's one I've experimented with a little bit, so very cool. Then we got Crows here. Crows did very well with this deck. I want to say like 8-2, something like that. And it's a mono blue deck. It has the Flow of Knowledge, which is one of the new cards that's very strong. I don't know if it got much else besides that, but really just having a really strong hand refuel at instant speed is a pretty serious addition to the mono blue deck. Yeah, so enough said about that. If you like mono blue, then yeah, this is a good list. And finally, we've got this, I guess it's a Jund-ish Jund-ish deck that is playing Atraxa, Eternal Wanderer, Farewell, Leyland Binding. So I guess it's like a 5-color Atraxa deck. I think Crokies was playing something similar to this, but this person got to rank 51 on the Mythic ladder with this deck, so they did very well with it. It looks a little bit questionable to me, to be honest, having the Blue Sun's Twilight double blue, but who am I to question a person who got to 51 Mystic, ranked 51 in Mythic? Yeah, maybe the lands are just that good in Standard that you can just play this and have no trouble. But I think overall, the rest of the choices are pretty smart choices. Having a few one-ofs that are kind of like clutch, save the game kind of cards is very cool. Like Unleashed Inferno, Kami War, one Wandering Emperor, one Farewell. Like all of those make a lot of sense. So I think it's very cool. Yeah, maybe I'll try it out sometime as well. But pretty cool. All right. Well, that's it for kind of the spicy decks. My feelings so far on Standard, I don't think it's solved yet, but you can see that a lot of the decks that were strong in the Brothers War are still very strong now. And I don't think they really got a lot of new cards to add to them, surprisingly, and they're still doing very strong. So that's kind of sad to see, at least. Like, for example, the Soldiers one, I don't think it got any new cards, and it's still doing very well. Mono Red, I actually don't think Mono Red is at its final form yet, to be honest. It's still very strong, but I definitely think they're sleeping on a few of the cards from the new set that they could have added. But it makes sense because a lot of times Mono Red players, they just like to get their one deck, play it every day, get their dailies, burn people out really quickly. So they don't always try to upgrade their decks and things like that, unless they're like a really dedicated Mono Red player. But yeah, that's sad to see as well. So it's like the format is so fast that you have trouble, but then on the flip side, you have decks that are like really slow and grindy, and it makes it hard to kind of deal with both ends of the spectrum. As a control deck, yeah, I want to say it's almost impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but it is very difficult. And I think the only saving grace is that a lot of decks are not running sweepers right now. So I've had quite a bit of success with the White Sun Twilight because you make a bunch of these tokens that have toxic, and opponents have to spend like all their cards to remove them. In a lot of cases, the only really scary card is the Eternal Wanderer, as it's kind of like a pseudo sweeper. So that's what I've been having a lot of success with right now. Is like White Sun Twilight go wide kind of strategy, and I also actually, to be honest, I had a lot of success with Dimir as well, and I think it's a little bit slept on. I definitely think there's a good Dimir deck, but problem is people don't want to like risk it. They just want to play what they know is solid, and Soldiers is solid. But I definitely think like Dimir is strong with the I forget what the names, but it has all the flyers with toxic and things like that, and recursive threats. And you can play some of the tempo cards, like some of the cheap counter spells and stuff like that. So I think there could be some almost like rogues type deck in Dimir, but maybe people are so burnt out on rogues that they don't want to play that kind of deck anymore. Yeah, I'm not sure, but definitely slept on. I definitely think there's some sort of almost like fairies type shell in Dimir that could be played. Other than that, we didn't see a lot of cards from the new set like working out. Eternal Wanderer is a strong card for sure, and then what else is seen play? I don't know. Traxa, I guess. We can look through here. Surprisingly, Hellraiser has not made a big splash. It sees more play in Historic, I feel like, than it does in Standard. Jace is pretty good. I wouldn't say he's amazing, but like the fact that he draws you some cards and can win you the game makes him pretty good in control shells. But the times I've played him, it's felt too slow, and like it doesn't really get you out of bad situations. It can only kind of like be your finisher. So you can't really rely on that +1. I've had so many times where I plussed something and then they had a hasty creature, or they had a buff spell, or they had like a burn spell and they just kill your Jace anyway. And then you kind of don't get any value out of the Jace, which feels really bad. And then of course if you minus, it's at 1 loyalty, so it almost always dies that turn anyway. So I think it doesn't really work as a draw card most of the time unless you're in a control mirror, or you're already winning and you can play it on an empty board. So yeah, it feels a little bit bad to me personally, but I know CGB has been using it as a win con and having success there. Um, yeah, so I'd say it's a good card, but I wouldn't say it's like a bomb card. What else has been seen play? Not a whole lot, to be honest. So I think there's still stuff to try out. There's certainly a few other like strong cards. Probably there's some sort of Rakdos sack deck that could work in standard with the Onicult and the new like sack artifact make 3 goblins thing that we got. Maybe you could lean more towards the sacking and less on the artifact synergy and make something work there. Not sure, but yeah, I think people just kind of don't want to try new things. They're kind of just content with playing the same thing because they know it works. So a little bit sad, but I definitely don't think the format's completely solved yet. But we'll have to see. I'm definitely gonna keep trying new things out and finding something that works for me and to get up to Mythic. But you could always go with the safe, tried and true list if you prefer that. But let me know in the comments, what decks are you having success with? What are you enjoying watching? What do you want me to try out? Let me know. I'll give them a shot on the ladder. And that's it for the Monday Meta Update. And until next time, see ya.